All right, wake up, wake up. It is Friday, May 17th. It's great to see you once again. Damon, Bruce, Larry Krueger. Like and subscribe to Wake Up. We come at you 3 days a week, starting around 8:45 on the West Coast, and we give you the very latest on the 49ers and take a look at the whole freaking world of sports right there for you. Larry, good morning. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great. I mean, maybe the weirdest story of the morning is that Scotty Scheffler arrived at Valhalla for the PGA Championship and was arrested, processed, and released this morning, charged with 1 felony and 3 misdemeanors.
We'll get into some details of that
Scotty
story.
Scheffler being arrested was not on the. If it wasn't on your bingo card this morning, you may want to adjust it. But suddenly the ratings at the PGA Championship was skyrocketing.
Look, if sirens bring along with them attention, this is going to get quite a bit of attention. It's certainly not a story. I can't think of any time a number 1 ranked golfer in the world who just won the Masters has been handcuffed ahead of his tee time at Valhalla in a major. I don't think we've ever had that one before, but we'll give you the details on that. But again, no one clicked on a thumbnail to hear about Scotty Scheffler this morning. We thought we would take today's show in a little bit of a different direction because, Larry, you and I have both been immersed, I think, in the schedule over the last few days. We'll have a few more things to say about it. There are a lot of people who are just going to beat the schedule horse to death. We don't want to do that today here. There's also still 115 games, or 115 days, I should say, until the 49ers play the Jets on Monday Night Football. So it feels like it's a little too early to get into pregame there, Larry. We'll hold off on that. I thought we would kind of take a little bit of a crystal ball out here.
Kurt Casale, what are your thoughts?
Kurt Casale. There's the thumbnail America's been waiting for. He's back. How many people are just like, who's Kurt Casale? What do you think of that? I don't even. Who's
Kurt Casale? Let's get into it. I mean, should the Niners sign him?
What does the NFL look like in a decade from now? I mean, I'll tell you, we could go backwards in time, Larry, and we could have asked each other the question, what do you think the NFL looks like a decade from now? And I don't think a lot of our predictions might have come true, or maybe they would have, because there's a fragmenting of the schedule in terms of where you're going to find it, what it costs to get it. The world of streaming is absolutely beginning to pivot towards coming for the NFL in ways that networks have to be absolutely terrified of. So there's the media element to it. Then there's the physical league element to it as it grows and it expands, either through the number of teams in the league, the number of games being played, the continents that it's going to be played on. So let's just start with, I think, a simple question here. Larry, it's the year 2034. We're 10 years down the road. How many NFL teams are there? Has 32 become 34?
No doubt. And 18 or what is it, 17 and 18 weeks becomes 20. 20 and 22 weeks. The preseason is gone.
Replaced by joint practices, which I believe will all be televised.
Yeah, scheduled joint practices.
And televised.
Of course. I mean, everything's televised. There's a new minor league associated with the NFL. Practice squads are, there's in-season and out-of-season practice squads. And I think you're looking at like 75-man rosters year-round, kind of a thing. Instead of like 90 and then 53, I think you're looking at, 75 guys around the, all the time, basically. And, off season that includes a league funded and, league, with the branded secondary league, minor league. And I think you're looking at, a team playing internationally every single weekend. Nobody will be based internationally, but what it will be is there'll be an international game every weekend in the NFL, where
Right.
every single weekend.
What I think the NFL is going to do is take
Brazil
over,
or
right, or
London,
like take over the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and there's 17 consecutive weeks of NFL football in there. They might not be going to all these different European cities or a couple of different cities. They're just going to pick, I believe, like a location, and that's going to be the base NFL Europe home. And
well, and maybe it starts with what like kind of a mesh, a merging of these different concepts. So, like, excuse me. On one hand, I do think that international growth is absolutely coming as travel becomes faster and more efficient and more cost effective. Let's be honest here. American pro football, as we know it, is the greatest sports entertainment on the globe. There's so much more going on. There's so much more action than in soccer that it's an absolute winner internationally. American sports, pro sports, is among the most compelling forms of entertainment that exist on our planet. Of the American pro sports, the NFL is the most compelling TV product, and I think it will be on a global stage. And I do think the NFL will get into a minor league system, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's a game every week in your regular 20-week season in the NFL that's played in Europe as part of the big boy league. You could almost be like a season ticket holder, and it may not just be in Europe, it may be international, maybe Brazil, maybe different countries in Europe, maybe South America, maybe. What's that?
You buy a season ticket to the stadium, not one particular team.
Yeah, it's like you're buying league pass, and you don't know who you're getting. And then I think the way you cultivate that audience is you have your spring league, your minor league has teams in international markets. So maybe you've got 32 teams, and they're not going to play. The Niners are not going to play necessarily at Levi's. They're going to play. The Niners minor league team's not going to play at Levi's. They're going to play regionally, right? Well, in certain number of those teams could be international teams. So now in the off season, you have your minor leagues being, you're growing your brand by giving international markets your minor leagues. And so you have spring football.
I don't know if that would be very profitable. Number one, I don't think you can sell minor league NFL football globally like you could in America. That all feels like it would have to stay domestic.
Oh, I think you can. I mean, you got to remember this. Who's more discerning? The people that have nothing or the people that have the real thing? Yeah, the people that have the real thing are going to be more discerning, and they're not going to, just because you're a New York Giants fan doesn't mean you're going to plunk down money on the New York Giants minor league team. But if you're, somebody who's new to the sport and you're living in Dusseldorf, and now there's a NFL spring league with NFL branding. Let's be honest about this. These are not the most sophisticated fans. These are people that are jumping up and down. The biggest noise they make is for the punt because they don't really understand the game. So these are not the most discerning fans, but they are fans.
Maybe they're from Iowa, but punting's big in Iowa, Larry. But look,
they're big on branding, and think about this. This whole thing could be tied to, especially if you do it the way I've suggested doing it, which is don't sit there with the Boston Breakers and the blankety blank invaders. Go Niners, go Dolphins, go NFL branding. So now you've got merchandising. You've almost got little merchandising hubs for your real thing in your minor league distribution. And then you might even be able to get the minor league players to live for the season internationally. Something that the NFL players probably wouldn't do, but maybe minor league players would do. There was a day where the NFL had the NFL Europe, and that was a largely successful developmental league on many levels. So,
Larry, go to the
I think that's
right
the future.
Now. Larry, go to the chat right now for Dimitar Dimitrov. who is saying, bro, stop dissing us over here right now. Hamburg, Germany, represent. We also know what 21 personnel is. Ja wollt, mein Herr. Ja wollt. Yeah, it's fantastic. Very well done. Raus mach schnell. So look, that's fantastic. I love.
But I mean, that's where it's going. I think where
morning.
we're going to is it's a sport that has grown up from its mom and pop roots because of appointment television, violence, and gambling. Gambling is international. I mean, gambling, it's more popular. There's more gambling in London than there probably is in New York, right? I mean, there's people love to gamble internationally. And so you let people gamble on it. You brand the NFL brand. You expand to every city that you feel like is a reasonable test case, and you run your 6-week or 8-week or whatever 12-week spring league. And I think if you fast forward 25 years, the NFL's largely internationally based secondary league will get bigger ratings than MLB.
I would like to see some study on this. It would take a smarter person than I to put this together, but in all the years it took for the English Premier League and major soccer to really grab hold of America's imagination. Look, the WNBA's existed for how many years? Like over 2 decades now, but it really wasn't until this year that it began capturing people's attention or imagination, where the women's Final Four really, became a part of like a sports conversation. They've been playing a lot of women's Final Fours, but it wasn't until just this last one where it felt like, hey, it's officially arrived. Formula One was strictly a European interest until it started trickling into the American sports conversation. And it's had an incredible 5 years of growth here, thanks an awful lot to the Netflix series that helped really, deliver an awful lot of attention to a sport that was nowhere near NASCAR or IndyCar in terms of just automotive racing pecking order here in the United States. How quickly is the NFL being adapted in Europe? It feels like it's happening really fast. It feels like NFL games in London or Germany were about this big about 15 years ago. Then they became this big. Now that's a big deal. Like it feels like there's an awful lot of people overseas clamoring for the NFL product. Whether that would lead itself to a minor league product, I don't know. But the major league product, there's no doubt.
It's the greatest passion, I believe, based on what I've read and people I've talked to who do live internationally, for NFL football is actually in Germany. And that's where they really, really love it. And the Germans come to London in huge number when the NFL has games in London. And obviously the NFL has played a game in Germany, and this is, they're really, really into it. So I agree. I mean, think about it this way. When, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, people would say, and they said it all the time, soccer's coming. Soccer was like the killer bees. It was, it was always coming. Soccer's coming. Oh, the MLS is coming. Well, they were right and they were wrong, right? The MLS was always here, but we're Americans and we want to see the best. And so really MLS is kind of stayed where it was. I mean, it's there and it's got some popularity, and there's a couple popular franchises. Seattle sells out for the Sounders, and I think maybe the Columbus team does well at the gate. For the most part, there's not too many teams that do great MLS wise, and MLS is not taken off. There's no buzz for the MLS. They're not leading. There's nobody sitting there going, America is not clamoring for the MLS. You could walk down any street in America and say, name me 10 guys from the MLS and I'll give you $1 million, and nobody could name half that. So that's going on. And yet soccer has arrived, but it's arrived in the form of the Premiership, which has been brought here by, and to a lesser extent, the Bundesliga and some of the other, and these things have taken off here. Why? Because we want to watch the best, and the Premiership represents the best. And so the organic, following of the Premiership has grown by leaps and bounds in America, while the MLS has only grown nominally. So to me, I think that should tell you all you need to know about the NFL going the other way. I think the NFL, people are going to want the NFL, right? The number one thing. But if you got both the NFL, like a full international series every single week in the NFL, I mean, you're never going to get team players to sign there. In an era of free agency, no free agents are going to sign there. I mean, a one, two. But I mean, for the most part, the average NFL player who grew up in wherever, Florida, Arizona, Texas, California, is not signing up to go live in Brussels. I mean, they're just not. I mean, maybe a couple guys would see the value of it, but for the most part, no.
Right. It's
so you give them a rotating team.
Raptor.
Yeah, that you give them a rotating team and they get to see a full season of NFL. And then you really start putting your teeth into the communities by playing your minor league system in all of the top European cities that can, and international cities that can, provide safety and good stadiums and, proper accommodations, all that. And that's how you expand. And then once they're seeing a lesser product, their desire to watch those guys graduate to the main NFL, I think, would be greater. I think it's a perfect proving ground for the growth of the league, because you're investing kind of in the bottom of the league, and then you're getting it's still going to be good entertainment. I think people don't realize that secondary football can be at a decent level. There's enough players out there to make a decent level of football. What makes it so unattractive is the branding. Nobody is going to get involved. It's like a new series. You know what? I'm not into the new series. I'm into the old series. But it's kind of like arena ball and an AF2, the NFL and NFL2, and NFL2 could be a major success. It could be exactly right now. Trey Lance has nowhere to go to improve. In an era 20 years from now with NFL2, the Trey Lances of the world will have places to go to develop their skills, and it'll be a great proving ground for personnel people, for coaches, for officials, for announcers, for every new wrinkle that you want to try out. I mean, you have a absolute perfect situation there. So right. I think that's what we're looking at. I think we're looking at either 75 or 90 man rosters. And then, if you're in the practice squad situation and you don't play all year, maybe, you're eligible to play in the spring league. And then, it turns it into, the improving the product and growing the base.
It would almost be like games played for Rookie of the Year. If you've played this many games, you qualify for the Rookie of the Year. If you haven't, you can't qualify.
Well, it's kind of like minicamp. I'm like, you see guys in minicamp that you don't see. Like, there were rookies. Like Ronnie Bell was not in minicamp. Tay Martin was. Why? Because I think Ronnie Bell might have been active for a certain amount of games and is not part of the minicamp. But Tay Martin was the whole year on the practice squad, so he's eligible for the minicamp. So he's still in that developmental kind of
right. If you've played
category,
if you played X amount of NFL snaps, you're no longer eligible to go backwards to get better. But if you haven't reached that snap limit, maybe you can go to the minor leagues that we're talking about.
Or you know what? Also, Damon, you also got to remember this. That the other thing that's going on right now is every player that goes to college is now a free agent every year, and they could be free agents, let's say after their sophomore year, to, hey, you know what? I played at Wisconsin my first 2 years, and I'm thinking about transferring to SC, or I may just enter into the AF2 draft and play minor league ball. So the one thing that's kind of I think a bad thing about the way the current minor league system, which is college football, is that it puts non-students on college campuses. It's not everybody who plays college football is a student, and yet they're masquerading as a student for 4 years, so they can get to the NFL. Well, why do that? Why have people masquerading as students? If you're truly not a student and you don't want to go to class and you don't want to earn or work towards a degree, this would be an opportunity to keep playing football and have the NFL dream open to you, but you're no longer a student at Vanderbilt.
You know what it would be like? It would be
Tennessee.
like the G League Ignite team. Like,
Right.
you don't even want to bother masquerading around in college. You're not quite ready to come to the pros, so you can go play for the G League Ignite team, and let's see what you look like, Jonathan Kuminga.
With no coaching.
Yeah.
With me, I mean, that's the other thing too. There are a lot of think about how many coaching jobs that would open up. Think how many scouting jobs that would open up. I mean, what a proving ground that would be. I mean, it would be everything the league really covets. It's like they don't have right now. Guys fall. Trey Lance is an amazing talent. He's going to fall through the cracks most likely and not have much of an NFL career. And that's the way it looks right now. Maybe his trajectory changes, but right now he's this great young man who didn't get a chance to play enough and is now in the NFL, and there's no place for him to play, and there's really nowhere for him to develop outside of 3 preseason games, which is not, that's not a development path. And so he's going to stagnate, and he's already wasted 4 years. And what we're saying is in the future, the Trey Lances of the world can go somewhere. And if you play and develop,
what Trey needs is the one thing he cannot get: reps. That's it. There's no amount of practice. There's no amount of weight room. There's no amount of studying X's and O's, skull sessions that he needs anymore. He needs to play, and he's in a situation
that to play and fail and learn and grow. And I mean, and the only way, it's like Cal Poly. My son goes to Cal Poly. Their slogan for their school is "Learn by doing." I mean, that's a, and what does that mean? Well, they're doing lots of kind of lab type things, and they have their students in the community and actually putting their hands on things and, learning by doing, exactly as it's stated. And the NFL, Trey Lance needs to learn by doing, and there's nowhere for him to do it. So then the NFL's going the other way. Instead of having more practice time and more field time,
right? There's less of it.
Now there's less of it. It's like, oh no, we got to make sure these guys only have certain amount of mandated OTAs, and there's maximums. And it used to be, if you wanted to, you could literally live at the facility. You could be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going in the facility every day of the off season, and I'm working out, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I don't think they can. I think there's limits to how many days you can actually spend inside the facility now.
Oh yeah, you have to punch a clock and not go to overtime. It's really weird.
They're chasing you out of the building now,
right? And what's odd is that the players negotiated this. So, I mean, like, to me, there should never be a governor on how much of a dedicated professional you really want to be. If you want to practice for 18 hours, you should be able to. Anyway,
you should. I mean, you're a pro. I mean, think about it this way. You're a young quarterback. You're Caleb Williams. Come September, you are going to be graded and evaluated harsher than you have ever been graded and evaluated before. So if you wanted to spend every waking hour learning, the pro game, the Bears scheme, your talent, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we say, no, you can't do that. You can only be here Thursday and then 2 days next week and 3 days the next week. Oh yeah. And by the way, when the season starts, if by chance you're a little bit behind, you're just going to get ripped nationally, internationally. Everybody's going to call you a bust. There are going to be all kinds of negativity heaped upon your head, but you can't work extra right now to prevent that from happening or be more prepared. So I mean, we're in a weird time right now.
All right. So enough about trying to reach the NFL or the minor leagues or European anything. Let's get back stateside, because we both agree there's going to be 2 more teams in the NFL in the next decade. Again, for the NFL to have more to sell, they need more product. They're already whacking up this pie as much as they can and giving it all sorts of, streaming services now or all over the place. I've read the article.
More of that's coming.
that we, if you want to watch every single NFL game this year, if you could watch every single NFL game this year and you wanted it on your TV, you're paying more than $1,000 with all of the different streaming services that you would need for that to happen. So again, they got us to sell more. They have to have more to sell. 2 new teams in the next decade. Larry, where are you putting them? What would be the right markets for 2 new NFL teams? It's not as an easy answer as you think, right? I think that they're.
I mean, if you're just going population, you'd probably say New York and LA.
Right. Well, but neither town and neither existing teams in those markets would allow a third team in.
Maybe a second team in Dallas would be real popular.
Well, there is one. It's Houston.
Yeah, San Antonio. San Antonio is a great football market.
What about Oklahoma City? Right, Oklahoma City is a growing.
Nashville, I think, is the biggest growing city. If you want really look at corporate dollars and that kind of thing, I think now they have the Titans. Yeah, they have the Titans.
Salt Lake City, Utah could use an NFL team. How about opening San Diego as a market again? I'm telling you, there is a ton of business to be done in the unsexy flyover states. If
the college belt, I mean, the college part of the country, Columbus, Ohio, maybe.
Don't need another team in Ohio. You already got 2.
No, but Columbus is a big town that's done really well with soccer. I'm just thinking of teams that, markets that have embraced.
I got a state for you.
Expansion.
I got a state for you. Colorado. Or it's not, excuse me, Kentucky. Kentucky has SEC football, but it's just Kentucky SEC football.
Cincinnati's pretty close.
Doesn't really move the needle. So
Lexington, you want a team in Lexington?
Maybe that's Louisville, Lexington. There could be maybe Kentucky. I'm trying to put it in a place where it doesn't have a direct competitor. And it feels like
Alabama, they love football in Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about Birmingham?
Your SEC schools will always be the star of the show. So maybe the NFL doesn't want to go somewhere where it's going to feel second fiddle. Again, that's why the NFL will never go to Columbus, because you ain't Ohio State, full stop.
My daughter lives in Atlanta. She says that for every word she hears about the Falcons, she hears 10 words about Georgia football.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. No doubt.
Atlanta, they're already kind of doing that in Atlanta. Yeah, I mean, it's, do you put a team in, you put teams in Canada?
Montreal,
Toronto, Vancouver. Vancouver's a beautiful city.
What about Mexico City?
Well, there's just no doubt. Mexico City. I mean, Mexico City. But once again, I mean, who in an era of free agency, who is going to sign up to live in a city that has real, challenges from the fact that it's sinking 1.5 inches every year into the mantle of the earth?
What, the Millennium Tower? Mexico City's been built by the same people that gave us the Millennium Tower in San Francisco, Larry?
massive, poor air quality and unbelievable amounts of sewage. I mean, there's the population there is exploding. I mean, it's just there's so many people. And the thing is, who's going to live there? Who's going to sit there and say, yeah, you know what? I've got the Tennessee Titans and the Niners and the Rams interested, but I'm thinking I may sign to go play in Mexico City for, no.
How about St. Louis? St. Louis totally got screwed over by Stan Kroenke. St. Louis was going to support a team for sure. I mean, the St. Louis was ready to build 3 different stadiums before SoFi was even said out loud. And
St. Louis might not be bad.
That could be a market, maybe.
Second team in Chicago?
Never. No.
The Chicago Cardinals were there for, with the Bears, right? Weren't they?
They were.
The Chicago Cardinals.
And then they went to St. Louis. Then they went to Arizona. See, like, there's no sports bigamy in, like, if you're born in Chicago, you're a Bears fan. That's how it goes, kid.
My uncle was born in Chicago. He was a Cardinals fan. He was a Chicago Cardinals fan.
Well, he must have been a very, very old guy.
Well, I mean, he's no longer with us. I mean, he would have been in his 90s now.
Right.
But I'm just
That's the
saying
thing. So he was
there were.
around when the Cardinals might have even existed there, right?
I mean, I didn't say he was a Decatur Staley fan.
Look it up,
Isn't
kids.
that the origins of the Bears, the Decatur
Yes,
Staleys?
the Decatur
Um,
Staleys.
but yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I mean, let's be honest about it. American pro sports is easily the most compelling entertainment on in the world. I mean, yes, there's concerts and this and that, but if you want to say about sports entertainment, American pro sports are amazingly compelling visually. Of our visually compelling sports, the NFL is the one that is far and away the most compelling. So now you take that and put that in an international market, and I think it's an absolute slam dunk.
I think we agree that we're going to 20 games in the next decade for sure.
Definitely 20 games.
Let's work a little closer to home, Larry. Is Kyle Shanahan still the head coach of the 49ers a decade from now? If he were, obviously he's won a Super Bowl, right? There's no way Kyle can stick around another decade without a Lombardi, but with one, there is a chance. He's still young in terms of coaching. Do you think Kyle Shanahan is the 49ers head coach in 2034?
Wow. I would say no. It just seems like there's so much turnover. The jobs, I mean, look how much the guy's aged in a short amount of time.
But he's on that Andy Reid, Bill Belichick career path where
I mean, yeah, they're all lifers.
30 years in this league. He really is.
Yeah, they're all lifers. I will say this. I do think Kyle Shanahan his career path is going to directly follow Andy Reid's. Andy Reid sucks. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. They got him out of there, and he's now gotten to a new place, and he's won 3 rings. So I think Shanahan wins multiple rings with Brock Purdy. So that I really believe that's going to happen.
So is Brock Purdy the 49ers starting quarterback, if health allows him to be, in 2034? Does he get a decade on the job, Larry? More than a decade at that point.
I'd say yes. There are people that want to replace him right now. But
the thing that made me smash my head on my computer keyboards, like the puppet on Sesame Street who used to bang his head against the piano. That guy, remember that guy? Somebody said, well, now that Michael Penix is in Atlanta, Kirk Cousins is probably going to wash out quickly. And when he washes out quickly there, because they're going to want to give him, the job to Penix, Kyle can finally come and get Kirk Cousins. No, stop it. I can't do another round of Kyle might want Kirk Cousins. Can't do it. Won't do it.
I actually had a guy call me last night and say that, that his sources around the Niners say that they're talking to Tom Brady. And I said, really? Well, I don't even want Tom Brady at this point. I mean, and why would the Niners want Tom Brady at this point? He hasn't played in a couple of years. He's old as sin. And you got a guy right now who's playing at a really high level. You were just in the Super Bowl. I think if you polled, all Niner fans, I think it would be like 95% would say no, stay with Brock Purdy. But it could be they're just having dialogue with him as like, hey, you know what? We're looking at Dobbs and Brandon Allen and Tanner Mordecai. If Brock goes down, we don't want to lose another season to quarterback injuries. If we have a Brock injury, stay in shape and we're calling you.
If I am Fox Sports, I would then turn around and sue Tom Brady for breach of contract. And I don't think Tom Brady ever.
By the time he's broadcast 5 or 6 games, Fox is going to be like, anything to take him away. He's totally mediocre. I mean, let's be honest about this. Tom Brady's not going to be a good announcer. I mean, I know Fox, he's the newest big name out there, but Joe Montana was that one time. Bill Walsh was that one time. Not everybody's cut out to be an announcer.
Remember how bad Jerry was in the booth? They tried Jerry Rice out in the booth. He was terrible.
I don't think Tom's going to be all that great in the booth.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he's insightful. Maybe he takes you into, the play like no one else ever has before, and it really works. I don't think you can get better than Greg Olson. I mean, to me,
He's
Greg
good.
Olson is phenomenal. He should not have been usurped by Brady. That's how good he was.
Well, I think you can get better than Greg Olson. Tim Ryan. I think Tim Ryan is fantastic. Tim Ryan knows the game cold, and provides all kinds of interesting insights, and has worked nationally and is now working locally with Greg Papa on the Niner broadcast. I think Tim Ryan is a terrific analyst, and there's a bunch of others. I mean, and you know what? I watched the bowl game, the Barstool Bowl this year, and I think that the future of broadcasting may not be in, seriousness. It may be in humor. It may be, I mean, that bowl game, I taped it. It was Wyoming and Toledo, and I had no idea what the heck was going on when I started watching it, right? Because it was like Big Cat and who's the guy who does the pizza reviews for Barstool? Portnoy, the CEO. It was Portnoy and Big Cat, and they had like some actual, mediocre announcer. But you know what? I watched that game, and that game was really fun, and it was different, and it was irreverent, and it was, there was a defensive lineman who tipped the ball to himself. He ran it back for a touchdown, and they started being like, "Hey, it's a fat guy touchdown, a fat guy touchdown." And then the officials reviewed it, and they took it off the board, and they're like, "Oh my God, what are these guys on the take?" And it was an aggressive. It was Barstool, right? It was Barstool in a nutshell. But damn, it was good. And it was entertaining. It was fun. And I could see announcing going back in that, going in that direction.
The problem
trying
is
to attract younger fans that don't know the game as well, not by trying to teach them the game, but just by trying to entertain them and have the kind of dialogue that's entertaining.
You'd need a whole bunch of stuffy owners to sign off on that, and they consider their product, I think, too prestigious to sign off on something like that. Plus the networks that are involved. I just think.
But now you get streaming services. So you're going to have, I think the streaming services are here to stay.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it opens up another path for an alternate broadcast on every single broadcast, not just your big end of the year games. You can watch you can watch the hometown announce team. You can watch the streaming services announce team, or you can watch the two dudes hitting a bong announce team.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, we've already got that a little bit creeping into our football with the Manning cast. It's like, do you want to watch a pro announcer and a pro analyst, or do you want to watch a couple guys kind of like sitting around watching the game, commenting on every fifth play as they're doing interviews and telling jokes and ribbing each other? It's kind of like one's a broadcast and the other's just kind of a hang.
Yeah. Is Roger Goodell, Larry, still the commissioner 10 years from now?
No.
Think he's walking away? Have you got a replacement in mind?
He's in poor health. I mean, my God, he's got a bad back. He was slurring some of his words during the draft. I think he's checking out very quick. I would say he won't make it a decade. No way. I would say maybe 3, 4 more years, maybe.
Will the Super Bowl move to a streaming service?
No. I think that one will always be, not always, but that one's going to remain. That's the game for the masses. The NFL, whoever runs the NFL, whether it's Goodell or if there's a new commissioner in place, that should always remain in the broadest of, and it should be broadcast to the largest audience possible, because that's really
let me ask you this then.
What makes the NFL the NFL is like the connection to the culture.
Do you think that there's a chance the Super Bowl would be moved to ESPN?
No, because I think there's still, look at the numbers, at least not anytime soon. The numbers still show there's an awful lot of people who that are unplugged and not even watching don't even have cable. So you'd be taking, I mean, it's like you'd much rather,
but they've unplugged
it's a much
from
larger
cable
audience
to sign up from for Netflix. Netflix is in more homes in America than ESPN is right now on cable. So again, the concept of it going to Netflix, I don't think is that out of the ordinary. It really isn't. And by the way, Netflix adding itself into the game with 2 Christmas Day games this year means it's coming. And once these digital services get the bounce of these NFL games, and you know what they do? They help retention. The churn of these sign up streaming services is what they're trying to reduce. They don't want to lose, we had 10,000 people sign up last month, but 4,000 went away. So
it's like HBO Max. It's like, do I order HBO Max? I do in the springtime when I know that Hard Knocks is around the corner, because I really enjoy Hard Knocks. And so I want to see Hard Knocks, and I only get it if I have the HBO Max. But now post Sopranos, post The Wire, post some of the shows that HBO had, it's like I'm not interested in HBO. So like out of season, I'm like, I don't need it. We cancel it. But then, sometime around June, I'll be like, yeah, I'll take HBO Max, because I want to watch Hard Knocks. And I enjoy Hard Knocks. So whatever. It's like, that's the beauty of the streaming services are, gonna make cable maybe obsolete at some point. There's already people like, if you go and rent, like I went to spring training with my boys and we rented an Airbnb. And so for a week, they said they had TV and this and that, but they didn't have cable. They just had, just streaming services and YouTube and that kind of, and we existed on like Netflix and YouTube for a week with no problem at all.
Oh, so, yeah. You can live with just Netflix and YouTube.
Yeah.
Without opening,
especially YouTube, because he goes down a rabbit hole and it just starts feeding you. It starts feeding you things that they know that you like.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, hey,
try this.
I'll watch that video. I'll watch this video. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Right now, the number one minor league system for the NFL is college football. College football has obviously gone through a metamorphosis in just its last 2-3 seasons of what it used to be to what it is now. It's a completely different organism.
Yet it's the second most popular sport in America. So that should teach you that. I mean, as far as growth, NFL's growing at the fastest rate. College is second. And that should tell you all you need to know about our love affair with football.
EA is dropping teaser videos of the new college football video game coming out in this summer, and God, it looks awesome. I mean, take my money, no doubt about it. Has college football, though, in a decade from now, Larry, grown beyond the natural conference structure that we're all used to and really separated itself into like a Power 65 that competes for, fabulous prizes that are unavailable to everyone else, which has basically been turned into a club sport?
Yes. Yeah, this is coming. The premier level of college football is definitely coming, with the serious players separating from everybody else. I mean, what's the worst part of college football is that if you look at the spreads of any week in college football, you'll find 25 games where the spread is 3 touchdowns or more.
Right.
That's not good. There's so many bad college football games. There's so many one-sided games. There's already been talk of it. Stuart Mandel wrote about this year. How, there's talk of the powerhouse teams, joining one gigantic powerhouse conference and separating from, the traditional conferences. I mean, we're already kind of seeing it. It makes no sense. Right now, I mean, it's like you're a Pac-12 student athlete living in the Bay Area going to Cal, and yet, the Pac-12 teams that join the Big Ten are going to, you're living in LA and you're going to USC, and now you're going to play a Big Ten schedule, and you're going to be in Chicago and all these other places. You're supposed to be a student in LA. I mean, that's just, that's not only is it awkward, it's just like it's borderline wrong. I mean, it's like, come on. I mean, and so much of the pageantry and the tradition of college football is going by the wayside.
Right. All of the things that would prevent college football from ever changing have so thoroughly been torn apart that there's no reason to hold on to, well, the Big Ten is this now. The Big Ten isn't anything like your grandfather remembered it. If he came back today, he wouldn't even recognize this. And it's the same thing for, the SEC, all these conferences, affiliations with bowl games, and, the Rose Bowl's got to be a Pac-12 and a Big Ten team. Well, obviously it didn't need to be. So there's no more rules. There really aren't. It's just a pursuit of money and separating the haves from the really haves, from the definitely have-nots. And a Power 65, I do believe, is coming in like the next decade. Speaking of,
the only thing about it, though, is that the NFL gets by on appointment television, violence, and gambling. College football gets by on those same three things, but then a heavy dose of tradition.
Yes.
And that's kind of what gives it its charm. If you start taking all of the tradition away from college football, which comes with the conferences, the conference rivalries,
the Pac-12
the regional rivalries.
The Pac-12 doesn't exist. The tradition.
Well, not only does the Pac-12 not exist, I think you're taking away one of the major elements that make make college football popular. It's appointment television, it's gambling, but it's almost kind of like nationalism. I mean, these Bible Belt states in the Southeast, it's like nationalism as far as, it's like there are people in Alabama who are like, I'm a roll Tide. And it's like, hey, did you go to Alabama? No, I didn't.
No, but they're part of their identity and their family's culture and their habits and their entire.
But we're an Auburn family, but we're a Alabama family, but we're it's like, so that's kind of like, it's kind of like watching the World Cup and watching some of the nationalism that you see. It's like what do you call it? I guess on the college level, regionalism or stateism or, whatever. But that's a big part of the whole, what makes it kind of gives it a romantic feel is the traditions and the regional rivalries. And if you make this super league and have all this change, you may crush some of the key elements that make college football the second most popular sport in the country.
By the way, speaking of gambling and, these spreads indicate this game won't be competitive. Have you seen that the 49ers, Larry, are the only team in the NFL that is favored in every single game this season? They're favored in all 17 games, 11.5 against the Patriots, 9.5 against the Cardinals. So they think that the 49ers are going to blow those teams out. But they're favored by 2 points right now at home against the Chiefs, 2 on the road against the Bills, 1 on the road against the Dolphins. They're favored everywhere. Wow. I mean, that's something else. You normally don't see that. I mean, not every single line will go off that way. Somebody gets hurt, everything changes. We all know that. But for a season, to just start hitting the board for the very first time in Las Vegas and to be favored in every single NFL game, that's number one, very rare. And number two, a level of expectations that here you go, Kyle, win the Super Bowl right now. You need it. This is it. This is, everyone says you got the best team in football, bar none, once again. And that conversation isn't going to follow you into next year. There's no way. So this really is probably that last best shot that they got with this group as they know it. That's incredible, though. Favored in every single game.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm reading an article from the Carton show, Craig Carton, who is, been to jail. Now he's back out. He's
gambling.
Yeah. He says that the 49ers are the best team in football. He says they're the best team in football, and it's not even close. They're the best team, not just in football. They're the best team in the NFC. Well, that seems kind of a opposite, backwards way of. You mean they're not the best team in the NFC? They're the best team in football. He says they're not just the best team in football. They're the best team in the NFC. He said they're a lock to win their division. So, I mean, there are people that believe that the Niners are absolutely elite. I don't, I mean, I watch them and I know their roster in, top to bottom. They are not this dominating team that's ahead of everybody. I mean, that's just crazy talk.
Look at it this way. Craig Carton, he's a talented guy, but he normally doesn't talk sports west of the Tappan Zee Bridge. So, Mr. New York, stay in New York. He is the 49ers are not going undefeated. The 49ers are not far and away the best team in football. They might be the best team in football, but they're not far and away. As a matter of fact, I think the gap is closed between how much better they were than everyone last year and then this year. So,
I mean, how can you say they're better than Kansas City? Kansas City, the Packers are coming. Yeah, Kansas City kicks their ass all the time. Why? If you're listening to that and you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, there was this thing called the Super Bowl.
Right.
We've beaten you twice in the last 4 years. So Kansas City's got the best, in my mind. Kansas City's got the best offensive player and defensive player and coach. So they're the best team. And then as far as where the Niners sit, I think Kansas City's the best team in pro football. Then you've got the contenders. And the contenders list, I think the serious contenders, and that would be probably Baltimore, Houston in the AFC, Green Bay, Niners, Detroit, and Philly. That's how I would break it down. So you got Kansas City's the clear one, and then you got 6 contenders that I think you could group together. Green Bay, Detroit, Philly, the Niners, Baltimore, and maybe 7. Maybe you could throw the Bengals in there too.
And then on the line underneath that,
with the Ravens and Bengals,
the Miami Dolphins are in that third tier.
Buffalo's
third tier, probably. Maybe. I mean, that's the thing. Buffalo's got a chance to rise or fall out of that, but it's something else to be favored at home in every single game. That's muy agresivo, Las Vegas. Muy agresivo. The 49ers odds to win the Super Bowl right now, Larry, are plus 600. So that means they're getting 6-1. The implied odds they got a 14% chance, a 14% chance to win the Super Bowl. Kansas City's plus 550. That's about a 15% chance. So they really are right there. The Ravens are plus 900. That means Vegas is saying they got about a 10% chance. Those are the top 3 odds on the board. The best bet, when you're trying to say, all right, you don't want to take the chalk because it doesn't pay very well. You want to put $50 down. Hey, what can I do with this $50 to turn it into something that I can actually use? The Texans at plus 1,600, $50 would get you 800. The Chargers, Larry, are going off at plus 3,000. $50 would win you $1,500. Of course, it pays $1,550 because you get your $50 back, but those are probably the best chance to make a big bang and not to just be you got no shot of winning that. You got to take somebody from off the lead lap if you want to make money in football.
Yeah. I definitely like Houston. I think Houston's coming. Why is Houston coming? Because Houston made a trade that makes the Herschel Walker trade look like Dallas got nothing. I mean, go look at how the Deshaun Watson trade shook out, and look that up, and look at the players that Houston got in. They got players and draft choices, and they've now turned that into an amazing array of players. And when you look at it on paper, you're like, that's what happened here. You look at Houston and you're like, wow, Houston. They went from 3 wins to last year. They were this incredible team with C.J. Stroud, and wow, they're coming. Yeah, Houston's coming because of the Deshaun Watson trade.
Well, and Watson's impact in Cleveland is it's hard to measure because he's hardly been out there.
Right. I mean, it's been a huge negative for Cleveland, but it's been an overwhelming roster building monster for the Texans. So yeah, I would say the Texans. That's a good one. I think Detroit's clearly coming. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Goff can get it done, but Detroit's clearly coming. And it's interesting. I mean, there's a couple young teams in the league that it's like whatever young quarterback. I mean, there's a bunch of young quarterbacks in the draft this year. If I think Atlanta could be coming because I think Penix is real. So and they've got some nice weapons there. Now, obviously, they still have Kirk Cousins, and that whole thing's going to be kind of a messy transition situation. But I think if I got to pick a third team there, I'd probably go with the Falcons and Penix.
By the way, let's shout out a little professionalism and we can see it. Kirk Cousins, man. Do you see how Kirk Cousins has handled all of this? Well, what do you think about Penix being the pick and you being already looked past and all this stuff? He has handled it perfectly with the Atlanta media. He has answered every single question in a way that, completely entrenches him in the job. And, this kid ain't going to take me out of here. We're being nice to the kid and the rookie anyways. Like Kirk Cousins is a better professional quarterback than anyone wants to give him credit for. When you factor in everything it takes to be a pro quarterback, winning the room, winning the media, winning your teammates over, saying the right thing, not getting anyone in a really awkward situation, being a pro, being easy to deal with, and then being an actual better than halfway decent quarterback when it's all said and done. Kirk Cousins is pretty damn good at being a professional quarterback.
I've interviewed him a couple times. I had him on a couple times at the Super Bowl, once face to face when the Super Bowl was here. Great dude. I mean, he's solid. He's a really solid guy. And he on the right day can look the way he looked against the Niners last year in Minnesota, where he was just looked like
carve him up.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible that night. I mean, he was absolutely incredible. But on the other hand, if in fairness, if we're going to have full disclosure, he doesn't win big games. I mean, if I said, give me the 5 biggest wins of his career, I mean, that Niner win was probably one of them.
It was right.
Yeah, it was a regular season game that meant a very little significance. And he hasn't won has he won a playoff game? If he has, I don't remember it. I think this guy is.
Yeah, he's. I mean, didn't he make the pass that was that huge dramatic finisher in Minnesota? Or is that even before the Kirk Cousins era began in Minnesota?
Against the Saints, you mean?
Yeah. That huge last play of the game. I can't remember.
Yeah. PJ Williams
smoked too much weed to remember that.
Yeah, right? I don't remember that. I don't remember. I mean, I remember it. I just don't remember who made the pass. I think he probably was Kirk Cousins. But I'm just saying he hasn't won a lot of big games. I mean,
that was Case Keenum, says
Case
Ninja Dam.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Okay. All right.
He wins less big games. By the way, on the one thing on the schedule thing that I think is interesting, and I don't know if this is confirmed, but I read this yesterday. 49ers have 8 games this year where they have less rest than their opponent. That's 2 more than any other team in the NFL. 8 games where they will roll in with a rest disadvantage. The Niners play 4 teams off the bye. That's not only the most in the NFL this year, it's the most in the NFL going back to 2002. We're talking about over 20 years.
I think it's a 22-day rest difference.
Yeah.
When you add it all up, I saw that from somewhere. It's a 22-day rest difference. Now, they're facing 4 different teams off a bye.
One of them's Andy Reid, who's like 18-2 coming off a bye. Maybe like 28-2, something crazy like that.
Yeah, at least they got a 10-day rest, while Andy Reid has got a 14-day rest there because they're playing the previous Thursday. But it's odd that the NFL would do that. I just don't understand how they don't distribute rest days a little bit evenly. By the way, Larry, you're totally frozen, brother. I think Larry has dropped out. Uh-oh. Larry, are you still with us? I don't believe he is still with us. Uh-oh. See, here's the thing. Larry's running the show from his end. So if he clicks, oh, there you are, Larry. You've come back. Magically. I was afraid that he was going to have to click out and we were going to have to stop the stream to get him going again. I can't hear you. Wait 1 minute. Larry says he's got it for us. Invader 49er. Time to see what Damon's got. Yeah, I've never hosted a solo show ever in my career. What will I do when it falls upon me to carry a show? What could possibly happen? Anyways, as Larry gets back to us, the thing that I want to get in with him is how a slow start can just doom a really good team. And to me, a slow start is measured by who are your first four opponents. This is the maybe best news in a very difficult schedule for the San Francisco 49ers. They've got what I would call a chance to have a very good start. You look at the 49ers' first four games: Jets, at Minnesota, at the Rams, New England. So they're favored heavily over the Jets on Monday Night Football. That's a game that they should win. At Minnesota, it's the best possible time for them to roll into Minnesota. There's no doubt about that because, they've got they've got a rookie quarterback, maybe, or it's just the right time to be playing Minnesota. I mean, it's Sam Darnold starting against the Niners. I like the Niners' chances if they haven't gone to their rookie quarterback yet. At the LA Rams, okay, so you're playing back-to-back road games early on in the year, but the Rams, that's a home game. It's a home game for the 49ers down at SoFi. Larry, good to see you once again.
Yep.
So we moved on, and now we're talking about how a slow start can doom a team. And this is, as we were just talking about, as the Niners got some that feels a little unfair or not equally distributed with their opponent moments in the season. The one place where the Niners did catch a break is at the beginning of their schedule. I think they got a very favorable first four: Jets, at Minnesota, at the Rams, and New England. They're favored heavily over the Jets and New England. Minnesota, again, you're going to catch a rookie quarterback or Sam Darnold. And at the Rams is the closest thing to a home game without it being a home game for the Niners. So that doesn't feel like a massive disadvantage there, even though the Rams are a good team. That's tantamount to a home game for the Niners. So I like their first four games out of the rip. I think that's the only real break that they get in their schedule. And then they run a gauntlet of games where the whole year turns in their favor or against their favor. And we'll go over that gauntlet of games in a second. I know we've done an awful lot of scheduling prognostication. That's why we didn't start there today. But the 49ers' first four games sets up nice for them.
Well, and this is one of the key factors in the schedule is not just, to me, it's like one of the things I always look at early when the schedule comes out is the NFL. You can't win the Super Bowl early, but you can get yourself out of the equation and out of the running early by just digging yourself a hole. I mean, you'll see it. You'll see the stats. Hey, teams that start 0-2 have a blank percentage chance of making the playoffs. Teams that start 0-3 have a, infinitesimally small chances of making the playoffs. So I always look at the September record and see who's going to be ambushed. Now, the Raiders always seem like they get screwed by the league, and it's probably because Al Davis sued the league, and so nobody in the league office ever wants to do the Raiders any favors. Listen to the way the Raiders season starts this year. At Chargers week 1, that's a loss. At Baltimore.
That is their only home game of the year. That is the only Raiders home game of the year, Larry.
Well, then they go at Chargers, at Baltimore, then home in week 3 against Carolina, who has, that's going to be Carolina's easiest win. So they're going to be coming like a house of cards, they're going to be coming for a win. They're going to be lots of momentum there. And then they play Cleveland at home. So, and Cleveland was a playoff team last year and is pretty good, probably better than the Raiders.
The Raiders are going to start 1-3. They'll beat Carolina. They're going to lose to the Chargers, to Baltimore, and to Cleveland.
Okay, so that's they I think have gotten screwed. Then I think Denver has a ridiculous September. You've got Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback, week 1 at Seattle with all that noise. Then they go home against the Steelers and that killer pass rush. Then at Tampa and at the Jets. I think Denver's staring at 0-4 to start the year. I think the Rams have a brutally tough beginning of their schedule. At Lions, at Cardinals, 49ers at home. Niners have had ownership on the Rams, and then at Bears. The Bears have a good defense, and then you look at the Bears' schedule. Bears are home against Tennessee in week 1 with Caleb, making his first start. Then they go at Houston on Monday Night Football. That's probably a loss. At Indy, that's probably a loss. And then the Rams come to town. So, that's going to be a super tough. That's going to be a super tough one. I'll give you another team is Washington at Tampa Bay in week 1 in that terrible humidity. And then home against the New York Giants. Those division games are always tough. Then at Cincinnati, that's probably a loss. And then at Arizona. I think Washington's got a really, really tough schedule. Patriots at Cincy, home against Seattle, at Jets, at Niners. They're starting 0-4.
I'll tell you the two teams that are teams of circumstance that have rough starts in their first 4 are the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Chiefs, Baltimore, Cincinnati at home.
Yeah.
And you can say Chiefs are really hard to beat at Arrowhead, and you'd be right about that. But those are two teams that might be able to do it. Then they go at Atlanta, at the Chargers. I don't know if that's going to be a really difficult game for them or not. So that's a little tough for the Chiefs. The Ravens, again, at Kansas City. They got the Raiders at home. Then at Dallas, Buffalo. And if you wanted to add a week 5 just for some sprinkles on top, then they're at Cincinnati. They play 3 of their first 5 games on the road at Kansas City, at Dallas, at Cincinnati. That's tough for the Ravens. Ravens could get off to a slow start.
No doubt. I thought Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon have some momentum going in Arizona. They played really hard last year. I thought Ossenfort had a great draft. But look at Arizona out of the chute. Week 1 at Buffalo. Then they get the Rams, who can put up 30 against anybody in week 2. It's in Arizona. But then they get Detroit. And then they get Washington. Now they get 3 out of the first 4 at home, which means that, but they're playing tough teams. Buffalo, the Rams, Detroit, and Washington, those are 3 playoff teams and a team that a lot of people feels on the come in Washington. So, I think that's a very, very tough schedule. Very tough schedule.
So, yeah, you're right. You can't win a Super Bowl in September, but you can be knocked out of contention. And there's some landmines for some good teams early on in the year to avoid. And I'll tell you, I don't know how the NFL does this. And I don't know how anybody in the league office can look at this and go, yeah, let's do that. That's fair. Do you see that the Steelers have a stretch at the end of their season where they play Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs? Those 3 games alone, separated by 7 days each, playing the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs over a 21-day stretch is enough of a challenge. They don't even have half of that. They're going to play the Eagles, Ravens, and the Chiefs 3 games in a 10-day stretch at the end of the year when every NFL team's a little bit beat up to begin with. What is the league office doing, having any team play 3 games in 10 days and then ever say a word about player safety or concern about that ever again? Like, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's massive bullshit. If I'm the Steelers, I might forfeit one of those games just to say, fuck you. That's seriously ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing about the Steelers. It's like the Steelers had one of the best drafts of any team in pro football this year. They really did an incredible job at rebuilding their offensive line. But offensive linemen take time to gel and really have an impact. And they got 3 great ones. And long term, I think it's going to be a great thing for their franchise. When I say long term, I'm saying that over the course of the season, next year, the year after, I think the Steelers getting 3 great offensive linemen, that absolutely is phenomenal. But for this year, you take 3 offensive linemen that high, and let's say 2 of them don't even wind up starting for you right away. You could be looking at, a really tough year, despite the fact you're coming off of one of the best drafts in football. So, it's that's going to be interesting to watch. As far as the Niners are concerned, I just look at their schedule and say, you know what? Yeah, it's good early, right? Jets with 3 new offensive linemen traveling cross country week 1. That looks good. Niners, Vikings. It's not going to be in London. It'll be in Minnesota, but it's Sam Darnold early on. Most likely not J.J. McCarthy. That probably looks pretty good. The Niners have had a lot of success against the Rams. The Patriots, as we've documented, are probably headed towards the first pick in the draft. They're really barren as far as what their talent is. And they're young at quarterback, Drake May. I mean, they're, so you're talking about, old Rodgers coming off the Achilles, Sam Darnold, Stafford, and then Drake May to start the year. The Niners get a nice little soft start, it looks like on paper, but they better bank some September wins.
Yes.
Because if they don't bank some September wins, they get the Chiefs in week 7, Cowboys in week 8, Buccaneers in week 9. I mean, they've got a tough stretch there.
So I'm calling it the gauntlet. Weeks 6 through 13 is where the 49ers win the NFC West and are the Niners have a home playoff game or more through weeks 6 through 13, or they miss the playoffs. That's the stretch. At Seattle Thursday night, say whatever you want. That is divisional opponent, never going to be easy, even with Pete Carroll out of the picture. Kansas City, week 7. Dallas, week 8, as you were saying. Then they get a bye. Then they're at Tampa Bay, a team that could have met them in the NFC title game just last year. Then they're back in Seattle, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. So your gauntlet includes a pain-in-the-rear-end division rival twice, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, who, if he's spinning it that day, is something that you got to worry about, Jordan Love, Josh Allen. And then the cherry on top of that, what we're not even including in the gauntlet, is a week 14 game against he's deep into his rookie year, Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears. So maybe he's actually starting to figure things out by then. And that could be a tougher out than anyone wants to admit, even though it's a home game. So yeah, you better bank early September wins, because that is a stretch that is good enough to that's a stretch that's nasty enough to tear a good football team apart.
Well, I mean, I think you're also, why end it there? I mean, then you go week 15, 16, 17 against Rams, Dolphins, and Lions. Those might be 3 of the most explosive offensive teams in the game today. I mean, the Rams have just added Blake Corum. They've got Kyron Williams. They've got Tutu Atwell, Puka, Cooper Kupp, Stafford, a rebuilt offensive line. I mean, the Rams offensively, they were putting up 30 last year. They're better. Dolphins are the fastest team in the game. Lions are one of the unbelievable. I mean, their weapons are maybe the best collection of weapons in the sport right now. So yeah, I mean, 15, 16, 17 on the heels of that. And that I agree. I have the Bears pulling the upset there on the Niners. Now, here's the thing about the schedule. There's lots of different ways to go through it. Some people look at it like, who had the better record last year, but it's a year-to-year sport, and teams get better, teams get worse. So then you look at, well, I mean, there's going to be a team that you absolutely, I mean, nobody had the Niners losing to the Browns going into last year, but they did. So I'm just saying there's going to be a game that on paper they should win, and they're not going to win. And maybe, the Bears have a really good defense. They've got some young weapons. I think Caleb's not good, but we'll see. I mean, they also have Tyson Bagent. They also have the Western Kentucky quarterback. They have options if he gets hurt or if there's a problem there. So, and they do have a good collection of weapons. I mean, they really do. Runners, receivers, rebuilding their offensive line, really good on all 3 levels of their defense. So, yeah, I mean, I like the Niners to beat Packers, lose to Bills. But it's, you never know. I mean, that, and all these things. And it is the other thing too. It's like what looks like a gauntlet right now could become really easy with a couple injuries.
Right.
So it's just, that's why this whole, the schedule thing's a little tough to, take seriously, because it's like, Are we going to have a serious discussion about, Tampa is taking on the Rams in week 18, or week 16? What do you think? It's like,
Right. I don't
I
think
don't
anything
know.
about it.
I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe
You want me to handicap the game that is the 17th game on the schedule? What about these
with
first
one injury? I mean,
right?
One injury could swing the point spread by 6-7 points, but you want me to handicap this thing, 3-4 months in advance? It's difficult. I mean, it's hard to do when people ask you about college football. Hey, what do you think of Ohio State and Michigan? I don't know. The game's going to be in November. Maybe ask me in mid-October. I'll have a better idea.
Niners are playing 8 teams that reached the postseason last year: Buffalo, Dallas, Detroit, Green Bay, Kansas City, the Rams, Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and one additional team that finished above 500, and that's Seattle. So you got them twice. And again, Arizona's going to clip him in one of these games because that's what Arizona does. Arizona wins 4 games a year. One of them is against the Niners. You can't explain it. Fuck.
The Niners have owned them recently, but the Niners are going to lose a division game for sure.
Yeah.
I have them getting swept by the Rams this year, but they've dominated the Rams. But it's just, I think the one thing about the Niners is that they seem to play Seattle really, really tough. And I think it's because Seattle is just, they've had so many bad memories of losing there, and there's such a tough test that the Niners always seem like they bring energy against Seattle.
They do, but it feels like Seattle always brings some energy against them too. I mean, it's just there's something about the Niners jerseys which bring out a good game in the Seahawks no matter where it is. And again, division opponents can never be slept on. A great way to catch a fat loss is to sleep on a division opponent that you don't think is as good as you. Familiarity breeds contempt. It really does. If I were to sell you, Larry, sight unseen, not knowing what anyone else in the league is doing, but I will sell you right now 11-6. Are you buying it?
Yeah, that's what I took. I took 11-6.
Yeah.
Kev, we did this the Wednesday night. Kev said 12-5. I went 11-6. The over/under's 11.5. So we were right on it. But there are, to me, the under is a way, way better play than the over, even though I have them right there. Right there at 11-6. I see many more scenarios that they go under than go over.
Does 11 get you the NFC West?
No doubt, but I don't know if it gets you the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I mean, I think if you go 11-6, there's a chance that somebody goes 12-4. There's or 12.
Detroit or Green. It's got to be Detroit or Green Bay.
Yeah, probably Detroit. I mean, the thing about Green Bay is really intriguing, but Detroit is systematically going through their roster and just improving it every single time.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Yeah. I mean, they got Christian Mahogany in the 6th round to add to their already dominating offensive line. They already have, Montgomery and the Georgia back, what I always forget his name, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta, and Jamison Williams, and Amon-Ra, and then they added DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport to their front. They added Amik Robertson, Enos Rakestraw, and their first-round draft choice, Terrion Arnold, to their corner depth. I mean, they lacked corners and defensive linemen next to Aiden Hutchinson, and they still had a good line last year. Now you add DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport to Hutchinson on that line, so he's not naked. Reader is just a monster. I mean, He is just such a wide body, and Reader totally dominated Jake Brendel in the Bengal game last year. So, I mean, you've got a gigantic nose guard now, and you've got 2 real good edge rushers. And you've got, you added like 4 legitimate starting caliber corners in free agency in the draft. I think the Lions are absolutely, unless Goff goes down or they have some kind of gigantic slump that we're not envisioning, I don't see it. I think Detroit's on the come.
Certainly felt like it last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were
big time.
Look, Dan Campbell will tell you they blew it. They blew it. They should
He
have been in
blew
the
it.
Super Bowl
No,
last
he
year.
blew it.
He blew it. They blew it, and he knows that. He knows that the best opportunity they might ever have to reach a Super Bowl is in the rearview mirror. Did you hear Steve Young talking about this?
Yeah.
Steve Young was on, I think, with Willard and Dibbs, and
Yeah, I did a video on it.
he
Steve Young said that the Niners blew their opportunity, and he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, they really, really blew it last year, and he is right about that. And Steve doesn't say that lightly. You know, I mean, he's a guy who knows that bites at the apple are far and few between. And when you got
Detroit was young, Green Bay was young, Kansas City was in a transition year, the division was down, it was all there for the Niners, and they couldn't finish the deal. And now here we are a year later, and Kansas City's now got Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, and they look better. And Philly got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They're clearly better. They had a very strong draft. Detroit is coming. Green Bay's, getting better. All these teams seem like they've got youth on their side. So yeah, it ain't getting any easier. But it doesn't mean, just because it sets up for you on paper doesn't mean you have to get it done. But the Niners were the first Super Bowl 54. They were ahead of their schedule. Super Bowl 58, I think they were on schedule. Now they're officially behind schedule.
Yeah. I mean, this is their last best chance. Because
I don't know if it's last best because, your quarterback is 24 and your head coach is relatively young. But
but your kick-ass football team all around those two guys is going to change dramatically with Brock Purdy's price point. So this is your last best chance. You are back to, I don't want to say square one, because if you really have found your franchise quarterback, you're never at square one. You're at least, you've reached, was it Baltic? What does pass go? What's the first Ventnor place, Vermont, whatever it is on a Monopoly board?
But you're going to have to. What does it take to win a Super Bowl? You got to have the quarterback. They got that. You got to have the head coach. I believe they've got that. Other people believe that Kyle Shanahan's not the right guy. Okay, right. So I think they've got
health,
two
health
key
is
elements.
Never guaranteed.
Then it's about your D. It's about your D. Now, my big question for the Niners, right now is your run D was bad last year, and you lost Greenlaw, Armstead, and Hufanga for the first part of this year at least, and that might be your best D lineman, linebacker, and DB against the run, and you weren't good against the run last year. Now, statistically, the people that the stats liars use statistics. They're somebody could counter that and say, Krug, what do you mean you're high? The Niners were third in the NFL against the run last year. They were third in the NFL against the run because teams stopped running on them because Brock Purdy put up 33 points a game. And so the Steelers stopped running and Dallas stopped running and the Giants stopped running. And
this is one of those use your own naked eyes, not the stats.
Yeah. The stats say they were great run D. They were not a great run D.
No.
Not even I don't even think they were a good run D. And now you've lost some key players. So the question is, who's replacing Greenlaw in this season and how do they do against the run? Who's replacing Armstead? Is it Collins? Is it Jordan Elliott? How do they do against the run? Do they have a free safety to go with Jair Brown? If Afonga's out and Jair's going to play in the box, is Mustafa good enough to start at free safety? Do they have a free safety? So, they've got some questions. And their run defense is at the top of the list. So, you tell me. So, once again, it's like Craig Carton saying the Niners are easily the best. I don't think so.
Well, and even if they are, the easily the best status will easily be removed from them next year. So that's just the way it is. There is no staying forever young. Everybody's a touch older. I promised myself we wouldn't even talk like this, but Debo could be out the door by then. That's going to change just the DNA of the team an awful lot. We'll see. How about this? I strongly suggest that winning the 2024 Super Bowl would be a great idea for the San Francisco 49ers. If they'd like to put that together, now would be the right time to do it.
New Orleans, baby. New Orleans.
I got one thing left. In terms of NFL topic, and then we got to talk a little bit about Scotty Scheffler, who had himself a very odd morning at the second major of the year in the PGA.
Valhalla.
Lots of talk of Valhalla in this past week with the Golden State Warriors WNBA team being named the Valkyries. As you know, the Valkyries used to escort fallen warriors to the gates of Valhalla. That's part of the Valkyrie job. Did you know that? How's your Norse mythology, Larry?
Weak to very weak.
Weak on Norse mythology. Fair
kind
enough.
Kind of like the crowds will probably be for the WNBA. Weak to very weak.
Did you just see that Caitlin Clark had a rough debut a couple nights ago on the road? She comes back and gets held to 9 points for the first time since she was playing like in high school. These women in the WNBA are giving this rookie and the biggest name to ever drop a bomb on women's athletics, Caitlin Clark. They're giving her a rude welcome, Larry. They are playing. Well, the WNBA is playing Caitlin Clark the same way that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen came out to guard Tony Kukoc in the Olympics. Like, they are just hounding her.
Because she's getting love that she doesn't deserve. She's getting love that's all tied to eyeballs and this and that, and people are talking stupid talk. I mean, she's the greatest college basketball player since. No, she's not. I mean, it's like, hey, recency bias idiots, go learn your history. Cheryl Miller was easily as good as her, and she came years and years ago. And there's others, Cynthia Cooper and Clarissa Davis. I mean, she if you know your women's hoop, you know that Caitlin Clark is a absolute monster as far as bringing eyeballs. I mean, the Final Four has never been more watched. The WNBA has never been more watched. There's a gigantic buzz around her, and she's big as far as ratings, but let's not confuse ratings.
She's the greatest box office.
Yeah, it's box office.
In women's basketball history. She is the most significant mover of eyeballs towards women's sports since Venus Williams. And
let's just not say she's the greatest women's basketball player of all time, because she's not.
No, but she's the biggest box office. She's bigger box office than anyone else on your list all combined together.
Sure. But I mean, so what? I mean, the conversation that is popped up is that she's the greatest women's basketball player.
Well, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, she's probably not even top 5. She's a great shooter. She's a good talent. She's excited people about college basketball, but she's not in the category of Cheryl Miller and the best women that have ever played the sport. I mean, she's
all I know is that I don't know enough about the history of the sport, nor could I even pretend to give a fuck enough about it to have this debate on any real level. So let's move to the one story that is officially something unlike we have ever seen in all of our years covering any sport. Normally, when it comes to getting arrested before the big game, Eugene Robinson is still number 1 on that list for soliciting a hooker right after he gets the Walter Payton Man of the Year award before that Super Bowl. Like, that is the most embarrassing thing that I think has ever happened on the way to Carnegie Hall, if you will. Today, the number 1 golfer in the world was arrested at the gates of Valhalla. Not that he was escorted there by the Valkyries. He was going into where the PGA Championship is being contested. It's round 2 of golf's second major. And Scottie Scheffler was arrested by an overzealous police officer. Look at it this way.
From what I understand, I mean, I don't know if you know more about this, but from what I understand, there was somebody who was killed in a car wreck or something around the club, and there was cones, and they were holding up traffic, and he wanted to get in because he's playing, and he probably said, probably gave them the "do you know who I am" kind of a treatment. I'm Scottie Scheffler. I'm the best player in the world. Yeah, there's cones. Yeah, there's people being ushered in, but you know what? Those are for the peasants. I'm one of the players. So we blew by them, and then a cop supposedly grabbed his car or something like that, and he dragged the cop or something like that. I don't know. I mean,
look at it this way.
I saw him being cuffed.
Let's say for a second Scotty Scheffler were a black man. This cop did to Scotty Scheffler, which would have had like racist critics just say, well, if he'd only complied, none of that would have happened. He wouldn't have gotten in a chokehold. He wouldn't have been. Scotty Scheffler didn't comply with the cop's orders. And the cop went through his window, dragged his ass right out the fucking car window, put him up against the car, and put him in cuffs right there. Because, yes, you're right. Scotty Scheffler played this traffic cone maze does not apply to me. And traffic outside the golf course had been stopped because a man was tragically struck and killed. Somebody who worked at Valhalla was hit by, a catering truck or something terrible happened this morning. So they're, the police are investigating that, and it's backing up traffic, and Scheffler wants in. According to ESPN reporter Jeff Darlington, who witnessed the entire incident, Scheffler was trying to drive around the crash scene on the medium. A police officer instructed Scheffler to stop, but Scheffler continued to drive about 10 to 20 yards towards the entrance. At one point, an officer attached himself to the side of Scheffler's car. Scheffler stopped his car. He turned into the entrance of Valhalla. And after about 30 seconds, Scheffler rolls down his window to talk to the officer. The officer just grabs Scheffler's arm, pulls him out of the vehicle. According to Darlington, the officer reached inside the vehicle to open the door. Once Scheffler was pulled out, he was pushed against the car and handcuffed. Darlington was standing right at the entrance. He watched the whole thing, and Scheffler even recognizes Darlington, turns to him and goes, "Can you help me?" And the officer says, "No, he can't help you. You're going to jail." And that's what happened. They took the man who is the number one golfer in the world, who has won 4 of his past 5 starts, including the Masters in April, and they brought him to the pokey, where he quickly, bailed himself out. He started his round already. He got back out to the golf course, and it's all big misunderstanding, and he should have done a better job. He did not. He's playing the "I didn't understand the instructions I was being given" card, and the cop probably did overreact, as cops tend to do when you drag them with your car. So it's the whole straight up, like, you should have complied. You should have followed those instructions. You didn't. You pissed off a cop. And let me tell you what everyone at Valhalla's got to be saying if you are involved in running that golf course. They got to be saying to themselves, fuck, we're not going to get another major for 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, they're apologizing to Scotty Scheffler like profusely.
Oh my God.
I wonder if he had been Tiger, would he have gotten away with it just because he's more recognizable? Maybe the guy didn't recognize him because he is pretty forgettable looking. He just looks like just a normal Joe. That if it had been somebody that they recognized, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, somebody that was like truly, famous, would the cops still have, grabbed him out of his car and thrown, it makes you wonder.
Right. No. And, somebody here, some I Go Viral says, sounds like your description on if he was black. Good job, race baiter. No, you're fucking stupid. You understand what I'm saying? That had he been a black guy, there would have been no sympathy expressed towards Scotty Scheffler. I would have been like, well, he should have just complied with the cops' orders. That's what racist assholes would have said about that incident. So again, stop.
Who knows? I don't. Race is not a part of this, so why inject it? My whole thing on this is that, communicate. I kind of feel the same way in some, it's like, I'm not Scotty Scheffler. I'm not, I'm not one of the world's greatest golfers, nor is anybody giving me any special privileges. The only thing I can relate to with this, and it's my least favorite part of going to a 49er game at Levi's, is their absolutely effed up process of getting into the parking lot.
Well, that's why that stadium sucks. There's a lot of reason why that stadium sucks.
But this is easily the worst part about it. And I told my son, who went down there with me on Christmas for the Ravens game, I said, Kev, you are going to get to witness the most effed up entrance in the history of sporting events. And he's like, Dad, you got to be kidding. You're not serious. I'm like, no, I'm absolutely serious. And there it is, Great American Parkway. If you're going to get in before they open the lot, because they don't open the lot, a day before. They open the lot a set time, 3 hours before. They don't want, or whatever number of hours before the game. They don't want people in there all day, all night. So they have a set time. But I do the pregame show. And so I've got to get there early, and have had to get there early forever. And the people are all backed up, right? And so their entrance is, you go down, I go down 237, get off on Great American Parkway, and drive to basically the entrance to the parking lot right there by where the old Marriott's was next door. So now you got to go down and flip a U-ey, come back with traffic, and now you've got all these people that are lined up, for 500 yards, standing outside their cars, waiting in line for the lot to open. But I have to go in earlier because I'm doing the pregame, and there's a media entrance. But the media entrance is all the way on the left side, and the only entrance they give you is the exit. So
Right.
You've got people going one way out, and you have to turn right and go in, and then get your pass scanned, and then you have to cut across 5 lanes to the right to get across the parking lot to the right to get to the media parking lot, which is in the top right corner of the parking lot. My whole point is, there is always a different police officer. There's a different guard. There's a different person standing there every single week. And they never seem like that. It's always like new to them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Everyone's first day on the job.
It's like everything is like, so I'll have my credential around my neck, which I'll be holding up, and then I'll have my my parking pass, which I'm holding outside the window, and I'll have to take a right into this lane where it's like 2 lanes going in the opposite direction. And invariably I'll get some police officers like, hey, you stop. And sometimes I've stopped, and then I've got to sit there and explain, well, yeah, this is the entrance. And then you cut across, and then you see I scan over there. And then, like, sometimes I've been told, no, you can't go this way. You got to go that way. And the other time. So now I just kind of keep it rolling at about like 3 miles an hour. I don't stop, but I don't get into an argument. I just hold up my credential and I just keep rolling. Well, there have been times where the police person standing there has like followed me for 20 yards, or like started running towards my car. Like, who the hell are you and what are you doing? And it's like, dude,
that's when you got to roll down the window and say, I'm Larry Krueger. That's who I am.
Yeah. I'm a big deal. No, but I mean, it's like,
guy.
It's like, I feel like just saying, hey, dude, get this, I feel like saying to the Niners, hey, get the same guard out there and let them know what the deal is. And then I've asked people, am I doing this wrong? Am I doing this right? They're like, no, that's the way you're supposed to do it. But it's
Let me tell you who did it wrong.
Counterintuitive.
Did it wrong. The Niners, when they chose that location for their fucking stadium, that's when they got it wrong. The number one reason that they kept on telling everyone why they got to get out of Candlestick is because, obviously the stadium is not state of the art at all, but the entrance, the entrance and egress or progress, or you're just getting in and out of the place was so difficult to Candlestick that they're going to move to a place that makes it much easier to get in and out of, when honestly they moved to the cheapest land that they could find right next to, a bit of land that they kind of already owned and thought they could take over. And they put their stadium in a harder to get in and out of place than Candlestick was. Candlestick would get backed up for sure.
Come on. Candlestick is surrounded by 3 sides by water. I mean, Candlestick is like easily one of the most difficult spots to get to.
That was tough, but it wasn't any.
Here's the thing. All this complaining about the stadium, without the stadium, they don't have the revenue. Without the revenue, they don't have free agents. Without the free agents, they're not contending for Super Bowls. So at the end of the day, if you're anti-stadium, you're anti-winning, because they weren't going to win.
No, I'm pro good stadium. I'm pro.
I know, but they weren't going to win in their old stadium, and they weren't going to get a stadium built in San Francisco.
The 49ers.
And don't tell me that this stadium is a worse idea than the mall. How about the HP Mall was going to be better than this? No,
probably. It would have been in San Francisco, which would have made it better than this. But let me give you this. They built
the fans are not in San Francisco. There's more Niner fans in Sacramento than there are in San Francisco.
Sacramento Niners, then. You want to do that?
I'm just saying, it's like they shouldn't be. If they should be where their fans are, they shouldn't be in San Francisco, because that's not where their fans are.
You shouldn't be where their fans are. They should be in the city that they claim to be from. That's
I mean, there's, the New York Giants don't play in New York. The New Jersey, the New York Jets don't play in New York. I mean, the Lions didn't play in Detroit forever. I mean, it's just suburbs. It's just the way it is.
The problem is the stadium had the stadium's design was from 1997. They didn't even get it built until 2014. So the day that it opened, it didn't look like it was state of the art. And now the stadium designs that we're seeing dwarfed it. It's the biggest sports architectural mistake since they built New Comiskey. New Comiskey totally missed the throwback ballpark revolution.
By the way, the Comiskey attendance from yesterday, I saw some pictures from Comiskey. The White Sox are really bad and off to a terrible start, and there's a lot of other things to do in Chicago. They had a crowd that would make the A's crowd look like freaking, 100,000 people or something. It was unbelievable. They had a crowd yesterday in Chicago for the White Sox game that I swear looked like 150 people.
Oof. Well,
I've never seen less people at a baseball game.
Jerry Reinsdorf, nothing but
than what the White Sox had yesterday. But all this, you love to bash the stadium. That's been one of your favorite things, to bash the stadium. I don't think most people, at the end of the day, it's not worth that much discussion. It's a freaking bowl, and there's 8 games. And 10 if you want to include the preseason. At the end of the day, I really don't care if I have to drive 50 miles for a 10-game season. Now, if it's a baseball park and you get 81 home dates, yeah, then I do care. But as far as the city of San Francisco's political structure was never going to get them a stadium. It was never going to happen. It wasn't like they just bailed one day and like Indianapolis in the middle of the night or something like that and took a truck and just took off. They had been working behind the scenes to try to get multiple stadiums done forever. And it was never going to happen. And there's just no real estate in San Francisco. So I get no problem. I mean, as a native San Franciscan, I went to many, 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 many Giants games and Niner games there. That you're talking about a tiny little corner of the thing where there's, you got a freeway, then you got to go little back roads it's on the waterfront. I mean, if there had been a water entrance, then Candlestick would have been awesome. But as far as just driving, it was kind of a train wreck, to be honest. Now, as far as getting in and out of Levi's, I'm not the best person to ask because I am getting there early and I am leaving late. So I'm not going with the flow that everybody else is going with. But as far as the niceness of the stadium, Damon, the last game, Tanika and I walked out, there were raccoons running up the escalator and people hosing down the corridors with gigantic fire hoses. Now you've got, a really, good food, nice corridors, very comfortable. It's the parking lot egress and, in and out is just a nightmare. But overall, and you can debate about the look. I mean, SoFi definitely is a nicer stadium. But as far as comparing this to Candlestick, I mean, one, you wouldn't even have been competing for the Super Bowls that you've been competing for if you didn't have the revenue that was tied to a new stadium. So they absolutely, even Eddie D, I did an interview with him years ago, and he's like, dude, you have to have the revenue coming from a new stadium or you can't compete in the salary cap era of the NFL. So they had to have the stadium. And the fact that they got one built and they're now competing for championships, I'd much rather have that than, what? It didn't work in San Francisco, but we're just going to keep on trying. London Breed is going to get it done. No, she's not.
The new stadium was coming anyways. you might as well have built one that didn't look like Stanford Stadium on steroids. Levi's is an architectural disaster. It looks like it's still being built right now. It's not even finished. That erector.
It's not my favorite look, but I mean, it's a very nice stadium if you're walking around with big corridors.
Right. They wanted to replace.
Nice.
They wanted to have something other than the fourth nicest stadium in their own division. They have the fourth best stadium in their own division.
Well, they have the oldest stadium in the division too, right? I mean, isn't only Seattle, I think, is the only stadium that predates them. I mean, the Rams Stadium is beautiful. I mean, there's no question. The Rams Stadium, SoFi Stadium, and I haven't been there, but I'm just judging by the outside look and the look around the bowl. It seems to be nicer. But at the end of the day, it's like we're still talking about bowls. We're still talking about football bowls where they're playing 10 games a year. I don't know. I have a hard time getting fired up. Now, if the Giants Stadium was a disaster, that would be a bigger deal because you're going there. I mean, it's so much bigger, right. So many more dates. But I agree. It's not. I don't think Levi's is the greatest stadium, but we're talking about Candlestick, and all of the positive of Candlestick did not exist until 1981. I mean, literally, it's a total dump until the Niners started making incredible success on the field, and then it's like, hey, that's where all these memories of all these great games are. Yeah, because the Niners were great. Not because the stadium was great. The stadium's always been kind of Candlestick. I mean, I love Candlestick. It was a stadium I grew up with. That's where my memories are.
It was dumpy, but
I lived in that stadium.
It feels like the 49ers now play for the Facebook 49ers. They feel like a tech company down there more. I don't know. It's just, I'll never like that stadium. I'll never apologize for not liking that stadium. And the vast majority of fans who go in there go, been around the NFL. This ain't impressive at all. It's not. It's clean. Congratulations. It's clean. I guess I'll give it that.
It's clean. It's nice. The food's good.
Larry, I've got our friend Guy Haberman joining me at 11 o'clock on my channel. A football guy, Haberman, going to be joining me.
I've got
what do you got coming up?
I got Chase Sr. in the house in 8 minutes at 10:45, so I got a jet.
All right, man. Well, say hi to Chase Sr.
10:38.
And then we got to get going. This was a good wake up. Thanks everyone for watching today. We appreciate your spending some time with us. Hit like and subscribe to both these channels. We got one super chat today from Dale. So just want to say thank you very much for keeping me sane while I've been out of work. This is the last live wake up since they started. Thank you both. The job starts on Monday for me. Well, Dale, congratulations. I'm glad you're back at it.
Yeah, seriously. Way to go, Dale.
Good man down. Dale, thank you very much. And again, the beauty of YouTube is you use this and you press play on it when it's convenient for you. We're not asking you to watch in real time, but we certainly appreciate everyone who does. And again, Larry, a football guy Haberman. It will be joining Damon in just a few moments, and you have a man who chases a lot, Chase Sr.
Chase Sr. will be in the house, and we'll talk a lot of football because he's kind of a football guy.
One of the reasons I like Candlestick is because I used to be able to take the Miata and kind of roll around, and I'd wave to the young girls. I'd be like, yes, I'm Ralph. Yeah, I'm Tom. You can catch me on 680, and this is my Miata. I loved driving the Miata through the parking lot and just saying, go Niners, go Sharks, talking about the meat cheese and the lemon pepper wings.
I thought you were cutting it right there. I was going to give you the walk off.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to everybody. Have a great day. Check out Damon with Guy Haberman. Check me out with Chase Sr. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks for supporting the Krug Show and the Plus.
The Plus, baby.
The Wake Up, the Friday edition of Wake Up.